Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Valls, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be here with you today. It is September 30th. It is Friday, and there is news out that I think is really interesting once we delve into it. It's about our economy. It's about what's happening in our nation and who is it affecting, and more importantly, how is it affecting us? What's going to happen next? What are the consequences of what we are seeing today? No one in the news media really wants to address that, especially about our economy before the November 2022 midterm elections, because it could upset the way some people vote. But I think it's more important to take the politics, well, not to take it out, but to put it to the side and consider what are we actually dealing with. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I do want to mention, if this is the first time that you are joining us today, we want to welcome you and thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary. And of course, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to hear your voice in chats, in tweets, and even in phone calls from anywhere in the world. And we do that because we believe in the First Amendment. It's not just an American right to be able to speak up about the issues that are affecting you. And we hope that whether your government approves or not, whether the internet overlords approve or not, that you will join us this Sunday and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we took a cross-section of a couple of different stories to try and let you understand what is happening and what's going to happen, because I think that's important. Very often the news isn't looking at how did these things happen or what's going to happen next. They only tell you this one snapshot, and they word it in a way so that you only get one opinion. We want to expand that a little bit for you. Now, let's start off very simply with what's going on in our economy. Well, the most recent news, as we see today, coming from ABC News, the U.S. economy drops 0.6% annual rate from April through June. In other words, the second quarter, the GDP of the United States dropped for the second time in a row. That means that the United States is in a recession. This has been the definition of what a recession is since the 1970s. That hasn't changed. Well, to be fair, it has changed. The Biden-Harris administration has redefined what a recession is. We see this a lot, where the left, when they have a problem, rather than trying to look at their answers, look at the questions, rather than reviewing what they have done, they instead change the definitions to suit their politics. And we've seen that here. Now, ABC News goes on to say in their article, the risk of recession, not that we are in a recession, but the risk of a recession, along with persistently and painful high prices, poses an obstacle to Joe Biden's Democrats as they try to retain control of Congress in November's midterm elections. However, the drops in gasoline prices have improved customers' spirits in the last 2 months. Have they really? Because we have seen consistently, yes, gasoline is down from the all-time highs, but it remains high. In fact, it remains about 70% higher than where it was just 1 year ago. And we have seen that the cost of food, everything has gone up in the meantime. And that's why we see inflation continuing to move forward. In fact, that's why the Fed has said that. Could anyone have expected this? Is this a surprise? Is there a reason? Did you have reason to expect that the United States would be in a recession? Well, actually, our long-term viewers know that back in January 15th of 2021, we anticipated what was going to happen. We were talking about the America Rescue Plan. That was Joe Biden's plan to ruin the economy. And we followed that up. On February 17th of 2021, we predicted that the second half of the 2021 year the U.S. economy would begin to crash, that this was the start of a downturn for America in terms of its economics. In fact, in 2022, as we saw this economic downturn widen and deepen and become even more extreme, well, back in March, we had to update all of our answers as we've been continuing to cover this throughout the entire last 19 months. And we've made even more dire predictions that the United States was going into a recession, if not stagflation, and that this would be long lasting, that it wasn't transitory, that it wasn't temporary, but this was the net consequence of the economic policies of the Biden-Harris administration. And lo and behold, 7 days ago, on September 23rd, we see that the news came out from the Fed chair itself. And we commented on this. It's official now. How high will interest rates get? How long will the recession last? We told you in February 2021, the economy was going to get bad. We warned you about inflation in 2022 of March. We predicted how long this would last in June of 2022. And the government, can't hide it anymore. And the full admission will come after the 2022 elections when you can't vote on your anger anymore. And we cited an article from the Fed chairman stating that this economic downturn will last until 2024 in the best case scenario. That recession is highly likely, and in fact, the rest of the world already is in a recession and already admitting the recession. The question is, how high will interest rates go? How high will inflation get? How bad will be the downturn in the economy, and how many jobs will be affected? That's the reality. In fact, that reality has been repeated. When we look at USA Today, in their article, many Americans find themselves in a catch-22 as inflation keeps prices and interest rates high. And it's only getting worse. Interest rates, according to the Fed, will go up to 4.5% by the end of 2022. But meanwhile, we're being told by the Biden-Harris administration the economy is good. We have 3.7% unemployment, which is an increase of 0.2%. We were at 3.5%. The economy worsened so much that we saw that increase. Not that the news media wanted to word it that way. We see that today, when you go to the store, as you are being told by the Biden-Harris administration and many Democrats that the economy isn't bad, that it's actually doing quite well. Well, when you go to the store, what you will see is that the price of eggs and butter, milk and cereal, the things that you eat, they're up extremely. Josh Bivens, a research director with the Economy Policy Institute. This is a left-leaning organization. And again, this is an article from a left-leaning news media. And they say, quote, the lowest income households, say bottom 20%, tend not to carry a lot of debt, having incomes too low often to even qualify for significant loans. And he goes on to say, however, the next 40% up, the middle class, into the more comfortable middle class, carried quite a lot of mortgage and debt, credit card debt. They will feel a bigger pinch from higher interest rates. So Americans across the board are being affected by this. The poor are being affected by things like food, where we're looking at eggs have spiked roughly 40% between August 2021 and August 2022. And the cost of cereal has risen 16%. Dairy prices increased 16%. Butter and margarine has cost 29.3%. That's the increase in just 1 year. And during our last Sunday live stream, we saw that several individuals had talked to us about the price of crackers, saltines, have increased 100%. They went from 79 cents to $1.49. That's an enormous increase on something that's scarce. that you can barely find on the shelves because 15 to 20% of store shelves are empty. This is across the nation and in New York State. You are feeling this. The economy is failing, and that is because the policies have failed. But the media, as they repeatedly state, and often in one line out of an entire article or an entire coverage, they will mention, oh, but we have the election coming up, and Democrats are trying to get as many votes as they can. They're hiding the facts from you. Now, this is having a lot of different impacts, but looking at this, we have to look also at what else is going to hurt or help the economy. What are some of the other consequences that we are seeing from rising inflation, rising interest rates, the increase in costs of mortgages, rentals, the increase in costs of loans for businesses to be able to conduct their business? Well, the fact is that these prices are going up and businesses are expected to pay more. We see the minimum wage, as we were talking about recently, has come back as an argument. The Democrats are promising $15, $17, $22 either as a minimum wage or as a living wage, which is putting more pressure on businesses that are still trying to recover from the downturn of 2020. Whether that's fair or not is another question. But we know it is having a massive impact, and many Democratic-leaning institutions are fighting against this. Most recently, we see that the Teamsters Union, they went on to strike with the business Cisco. This is from 2 days ago. Now, why is this important? Teamsters Local 317 walked off the job and have started a strike because, in their view, it is over unfair labor practices, unsolved grievances, and most importantly, unfair wages. This is according to Matt Wademan, a 30-year driver at Cisco Syracuse. Quote, "This is nothing but corporate greed. Cisco simply doesn't want to pay what we're worth. This is about money." Now, you may say, well, Mike, this is a strike by a union, the Teamsters Union. How does that have any impact on the economy? Well, the question is, why are the Teamsters striking? Because the cost to buy eggs and milk and meat have skyrocketed. The cost of electricity has skyrocketed. The cost of rentals and mortgages on their homes have skyrocketed. And they are in the 40% of the middle class that is most harshly being affected, as we were told by ABC News. Because the policies are putting the most pressure on the middle class. And of course, the poor are also negatively impacted as well. That the policies going forward are going to harm individuals. Now, the Teamsters, for their part, and they're protesting, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not speaking about that protest at this moment, but I want you to understand, what are they doing to try and benefit themselves? How are they helping here? Well, where are they donating their money? We know that it's historic. Unions donate to Democrats, but it's the Democrats that created the economic policies that for 19 months have demonstrably been making the economy worse. So what are they doing in 2022 as we come to the midterms? Well, we took a look at that. And looking at Teamsters Local 317, we know that they have made donations of $29,701. But we don't know who they donated to. These are small donations that they've made. Small donations that cannot be tracked, which makes it very difficult to understand. But we do know that according to Open Secrets, they are liberal. The Teamster Union is liberal or Democratic, and they traditionally do donate to Democrats. In fact, one of the few endorsements that we can see is that they made an endorsement to Francis Connolly, who is a Democrat, and he is running for Congress. So it's very apparent that the Teamsters Union, Teamsters Local Union 317, which is on strike because of the economy, which has become worse over the last 19 months, to be able to feed their families, to be able to afford their homes. They're demanding more from their employer. These are economic factors that have been made worse by Democrats and their policies, hurting the business and therefore hurting the Teamsters. But the solution by the Teamsters is to support even more Democrats with even more dangerous policies that are going to put us in a deeper, longer recession. Does that make sense to anyone? Now, at the same time, let's make sure we understand Cisco for themselves are no better. Because Cisco, again, according to OpenSecrets.com, they make donations to both Republicans and Democrats. More to Republicans than Democrats, but a little bit of both. So they're playing both sides against the middle. Okay? And most recently, when we look at this, it's not just that they're making donations to Democrats. Who are they making donations to? Well, we took a look at that, and they're making donations to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the one who led the economic policies, like the American Rescue Plan, that have put America into a recession. They're making donations to individuals like Tim Ryan. You know, Tim Ryan, who is quoted as having said, we have to kill and confront the, quote, extremist Republicans, that if you have an opinion different than, say, Joe Biden, that you are labeled an extremist, just like Joe Biden said during his Reichstag speech in Philadelphia to the entire nation, bathed in red light, with the full force of the United States government behind it, demonizing fully 40 to 50% of all Americans. And Tim Ryan of Ohio is part of who Cisco is making donations to. In fact, they're also making donations to Val Demings. She's a Florida Democrat. Val Demings was so busy trying to get sympathy votes that she went to Puerto Rico after the hurricane hit there, which I appreciate. I have family in Puerto Rico. And in talking with my family in Puerto Rico, in looking at the reports there, why is this Florida Democrat wasting her time and energy going to Puerto Rico and in Puerto Rico distracting FEMA from doing its job, helping the people recover from the hurricane? Because she wanted a photo op. That's all it was. She's making demands of FEMA. And as we correctly said on September 26, FEMA does not answer to you. Thus, you are a distraction from their work. So you can get photo op and votes for pandering. Stop being ineffective and get to DC and do your job. That might help. Putting on a tool belt and fixing things will also help. Either is better than a desperate plea for votes based on getting a photo op. And quite honestly, Val Demings has no place in Puerto Rico. She has no power over FEMA. She has no influence over FEMA and how it helps people after a natural disaster. She can only get in the way trying to get her photos showing that she cares. She's part of the problem, not the solution. And Cisco is part of the problem in funding Val Demings, who's avoiding doing her job at the time on September 26, and supporting individuals like Tim Ryan, who is attacking 40%, maybe 50% of Americans for daring to have an opinion and the First Amendment allowing them to share that opinion. I think this is very important. We are seeing a trend here that we are seeing Democrats across this nation that are lining up behind the values, the ideas of Joe Biden, that anyone who opposes his view the very progressive idea of America, if you disagree with that, then you're the bad guy. Even though the policies that they have put forth have hurt average Americans, the poor, those in the middle class, they have hurt businesses that Americans work at, such that many of these unions have to go out and now protest and strike so that they can get more wages because they can't afford what they voted into office. And it doesn't end there. It gets worse and worse as we go. You see, because in New York State, we now have a new bill, or a bill that was introduced on November 17th of 2021. This is Bill 8431-B. It was introduced into the New York Assembly. It is supported by a host of Democrats in the New York State Assembly. It was introduced by Joanne Simon, Harvey Epstein, Robert C. Carroll, and Jeffrey Dinowitz. But as you can see, there are many, many Democrats in the New York State Assembly that are supporting this bill. And you have to ask yourself, what does this bill do? This enacts an all-electric bill. This bill says that every building in New York State must convert to electric-only heating. Think about that for a second. All new buildings, and then in the future, all buildings, they all must become electric heating only. You're not going to be able to have in your business in your home, any other kind of heating besides that which the government has determined for you. Now, this is a scary thought. There's a couple of levels of scary on this. This is the government micromanaging your life. New York government, under a progressive leadership, the appointed Governor Kathy Hochul and the state assembly and state senate have decided that you only have the option of using electricity to heat your home. Whether it's the most effective thing for your home, whether it's good for you or not, they have made the decision and you must abide by that decision. That's the only choice. Now, that seems to fly in the face of freedom of every single American citizen and, of course, every New Yorker in total. But there's a bigger problem with this. And they state here that it must be reported to all the various departments of New York State government that changes to the electric rate designs, new and existing subsidy programs, policies, or laws are necessary to ensure that Subdivision 6 and 7 of Section 11-104 of this article do not diminish the production of affordable housing or the affordability of electricity for customers in all electric buildings. They know that this is going to be expensive. They know that this cost burden will be too much for poor and middle class families throughout New York State. And so they are looking at increasing the amount of taxes and the spending by New York State, which is in debt, $6 to $8 billion. They're going to increase that debt to subsidize, to take your tax dollars to pay for their policy that eliminates the choice of American citizens. Again, we're looking at policy that hurts people that the government is mandating, and they're looking at your tax dollars to pay for their decisions as they micromanage your life. How is that a good thing? They know this isn't effective, that people cannot afford this, that this is not the best option for the poor middle class, but they're going to make it mandatory, and they are going to make sure that you pay for it one way or the other. Now, we found that to be very, very troubling. And we were looking into this about the power grid in New York State because we had a question. Power grid across the United States is ancient. It needs to be replaced. It will cost $7 trillion. But in looking at what is being proposed by New York State at this moment and looking at the power grid, well, the answers that we are getting are that the power grid needs to be adjusted for future. They have no idea what the needs are going to be. Future New York transmission needs will depend on total load and which new resources are developed over the next 20 years. All major uncertainties. So they are requiring people to switch to electricity, but they don't know how much electricity is necessary. They don't know what a new power grid must be capable of handling. They don't know what new technology will exist to be able to store energy or to transmit that energy. New York State itself is admitting they are at a loss for trying to figure out what the future will be, even as they mandate that the only option available to the public is renewable energy and electricity. It gets even worse. Because when we look at this, and this is coming from Utility Drive, New York lawmakers abandon bill to grow renewables as state grid operator warns margins tightening. And again, New York lawmakers are Democrats. They are Democrats and progressives. That is who controls the New York State legislature, from appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, including Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, who abandoned the New York 19th District to be able to run as the Lieutenant Governor of New York. These individuals are who made the decision without thinking about the consequences. Part of the consequences, quote, looking ahead to 2040, when New York's grid will need to be carbon-free, ISO officials say there are gaps in the resource mix and about 10% of the state's energy production will need to come from dispatchable emissions-free sources they have yet to have identified. I want to be clear on what that means. They don't know where the energy is coming from. We know that government is micromanaging individual lives, and they have no idea how to make what they are mandating actually happen. You have to switch to electric. They don't know where they're going to get the electricity from. They don't know how they're going to transmit the electricity to you. Democrats are absolutely behind and pushing the Biden administration on policies that have destroyed our economy, demonstrably, factually, empirically, mathematically have destroyed our economy, such that we are seeing people have to go and strike to get more money because they can't afford to live under these policies, even as America goes into a deeper recession and a longer recession, as we have covered many times. In fact, we've seen in the Daily News, Steve Levy has reported on this. Requiring electric-only building heat will slam New Yorkers. Now, he goes through this in some depth, including the fact that Kathy Hochul has already admitted that these actions were premature and that the proposal to radically change the suburbs by requiring towns to accept two-family zoning schemes was pushed back because there weren't enough people talking about this. Even Democrats on Long Island were against these ideas and these changes. And people forget, where does the electricity come from? Because we've seen this in Germany, we've seen this in Europe, we've seen this around the world. Going to a renewable energy, solar, wind, hydroelectric, biogas, it isn't enough. It isn't making up the difference. What's happening in Germany right now, where they have to turn back on their coal plants. They're considering putting back on their nuclear plants because renewable energy will not keep the people warm during the winter. And in fact, electric energy isn't necessarily enough either. In fact, this seems more and more like what we see happening in California right now, where again, Democratic legislatures and Governor Newsom have made a decision for the public. They have micromanaged their lives and said that you must give up your gas-powered car. You must buy electric vehicles, just like Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, has advised. You must go out and buy these new vehicles even though it may cost you up to $30,000 to replace the batteries if this vehicle gets damaged at all. And you must switch to electricity in your homes. And yet, when people do that, California is facing an energy crisis. And it denies people the ability to actually charge their vehicles, that they cannot use the electric power in their homes because the renewable energy isn't enough. It is not reliable, nor is the electric grid. And people in California were denied the ability to charge their electric vehicles, to use the electricity in their homes, to be able to live their lives because the government micromanaged them. In fact, when we look at this seems a lot like what we are seeing with the Swiss, where people are being told the government has made the decision on what temperature their home can be at, that they will be fined or possibly put in jail for exceeding a temperature that the government has directed for them. Now, we know, and as we admitted, it is not a fact in Switzerland yet. This is a proposal. This is what the government wants to do. The government wants to micromanage the lives of their citizens to decide exactly what the temperature they're going to use, which we find only a half step away from the government deciding how much electricity you can use at any given moment, whether it's to heat your home or to charge an electric vehicle or just to turn on the lights to read a book or watch TV or, God forbid, get on the internet. This is where the direction is going. So in total, what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at bad economic policies that are harming individuals, both businesses, large and small, workers, whether in a union or not. This is harming individuals at various states as the government is mandating and micromanaging your life more and more. And as they do this, even though they are not prepared for the consequences, as they go forward, they don't even understand the consequences of what they're doing. They know at this moment, they know they don't have the complete picture. They don't have the answer. They know that what they need, whether it's creating the electricity or transporting the electricity, is something beyond their economic capabilities, as well as functional, real-world science and engineering. It doesn't exist. They can't match what they are getting now, but yet they have made the decision for you. They are telling you how to live your life based on their political agenda that requires them to remain in power to execute. This is a problem. We have been telling you since 2021 consistently that the economy is getting worse because the policies and the policy makers are making it worse. And we have seen as a result of that, individuals like Tim Ryan out of Ohio, like Val Demings out of Florida, like Francis Connolly or Josh Riley, candidates in New York State, and the existing government of New York State and California, whether it be appointed Governor Kathy Hochul or Governor Newsom with his visions of becoming president in 2024. These individuals, they don't have a plan, and they don't understand the consequences of what they are suggesting. All they know is they want to win that next election. And to do that, they will tell you anything and everything is good and great, even when it isn't. The economy isn't good, and it's not getting better, not for quite some time. Their policies aren't helping the poor or the middle class. It's making their lives worse. It's not helping unions. It's not helping anyone. And we'll tell you this, you can vote for anyone that you want to. But we are asking you to consider, do they actually have a plan that's good? Do they understand the consequences of what they are doing? Or are they like Val Demings, just going around and getting photo ops and promising you things will be good? Are they like Tim Ryan, threatening you for having a different opinion? Do you really want to re-elect that? Is that really the best thing for America? We'd like to hear what you think about that. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. And we hope you will join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we look through this and many other issues that affect you every day. Thank you. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference. When you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription, you make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you.